Okay, we don't have a quorum yet, so we're still waiting on a few people to show up. Okay, just so you know, we're waiting on Council President Luqadda just to come and so we can start the presentations. And then hopefully we'll have Mayor Duncan show up and we'll have a quorum. It could be anybody, yes. Oh, sorry. Okay, we have a quorum, everybody. Good morning. The February 6th Executive Committee meeting is called to order. First, I'd like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, world, and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute the original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días, aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tablet, etcétera, presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, the Genyo, the Cluseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Michael, can you please confirm quorum?
We have a quorum, Chair.
All right. Yay. Okay, we're going to begin with non-agenda public comment. I'm going to start with my own little comments first. To remind everybody that the purpose of public comment is to provide constructive criticism and relevant ideas to the business of this agency and to the agenda topic that is being heard. First Amendment rights are honored here. At non-agenda comments, you can speak and share your comments on items that are not on the agenda, but are relevant to the business of SANDAG. We are not the county. We are not the district attorney's office. We are not the city of San Diego. We are SANDAG. With that, I'm going to send this over to Michael to please begin with non-agenda public comment.
Thank you, Chair. We have 2 in person and we have 6 online. So for the purposes of civility and an orderly meeting, we kindly ask that you refrain from using loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language. For our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. So based on those factors, the Chair has determined that today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. Also, as a reminder, Executive Committee, we do not use voting pads for this meeting, so just go ahead and raise your hand if and when you'd like to speak. First up, we have Purita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
Good morning. I am Purita Javier, senior with existing medical condition and victim of ceramics toxicity from the home business next door that began operation in 1984. I was not aware of the threat to my health and safety beginning in 1997, not until Cesar gave to my life in 2012 as resident. Since then, our curiosity leads us in search of solutions and a journey almost 5 years without answer. We are guided by divine hands to join and participate in SANDAG. And in fact, Attorney Campilio, City Councilor, D7 commended Mr. Javier, you are everywhere. True, because we had attended twice at his Navajo community planning group, which miraculously gave us the opportunity to hand him a copy of our community petition in hazardous home business. Twice, too, at his Sarah.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Andrea Ebbing online.
Thank you, God. We are still alive to voice our community issue. True, SANDAG is not or has the power on accountability and liability. But members, thinkers, particularly city elected officials, failed us. It's here, Councilor Lacaba. City employees escorting Councilor Lacaba. We were here ahead of the schedule, Sir Lacaba. We represent you. You were late 31 minutes. Our clamor for solution is here. God, let us lie down or in a green pasture beside the still water. That's land use. That's California Environment and Land Use. That is SECA. You failed us. The question is, where is the money to ensure that the investigation is accurate? And we asked you. We are counting down. Our reputation and our life, as far as the health impact, is at stake. You declared us violent during the September 16 council meeting. Why? Those were the words of cry and pain. September 15, my wife was declared zero audition on her left ear. We confirmed the same at the office of the Dr. Suzette Barr and said, yes, she is now having Alzheimer's.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Andrea Ebbing online, followed by Consuelo.
Good morning. This is Andrea Ebbing, and I appreciate the guidance in the very beginning about how to comment on SANDAG, but I just want to remind everybody that the SANDAG organization is funded by the taxpayer, which is me and everybody that's commenting. And we pay your salaries, and you're the San Diego Association of Governments. And as an association, you should pay close attention to the people who are involved in your group, Duncan, as well as the people that are in the county and associated with your group, like Summer Stephan, and the people that are being contracted awards, like Apex Recovery, which all three of those parties are connected, and they're using our roadways to traffic human beings and opioids and individuals who are being imported from all over the country for quote unquote treatment, addiction treatment. We know everybody's getting kickbacks. We know what's happening. My children were abducted on those roads. Where were you when my children were being driven across the country on a permanently suspended license? But the ARJA system failed us too. They couldn't access my full custody and restraining order. They couldn't access felony strangulation charges. They couldn't access another strangulation murder investigation in the state in which he took my daughters to. You guys couldn't find the Jenny Spielman death investigation of fentanyl lollipop overdose when my ex, who was the clinical director of Bay Recovery, stole 25 fentanyl lollipops at the exact same time. And she died on our shared birthday. I was turning 28. She was turning 29. And she died of a fentanyl lollipop overdose. But our just kind of missed that one and the felony charges that took place in the home of Prakash Bhatia, who's a psychiatrist, who is a partner of my ex, and Summer Stephan. And that's who she used to commit Nancy Sussman. Even though he was busted for opioid distribution, his only punishment was to pay her federal judge husband, Dana Sabrow, $145,000 to resolve his opioid distribution. Injectable fentanyl from a psychiatrist that Summer Stephan used to commit Nancy Sussman, a USC attorney who just lost her son. Terrible stuff.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Consuelo, followed by phone number 3731.
They got it because they can't handle it. Okay, Consuelo here. So let's see, every meeting, whether it's SANDAG, the county of supervisors, or city councils, y'all begin honoring the indigenous tribes and acknowledging the land of the First Nations people. And yet, everything you do is modern day colonization. You colonize the land, you colonize policy, and most disturbingly, you colonize the minds. This is not melodrama. This is truth. This is reality. Many of you sitting on this board have fully internalized the system that prioritizes control over humanity, compliance over conscience, and agendas over people. Whether you are actively participating or quietly enabling it, this is still complicity. And we are told government moves slowly, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. That slowness is not accidental, it's strategic. Incremental harm is harder to see, harder to resist, easier to normalize. Meanwhile, you approve dense stacked housing and you call it homes when they are anything but. While homelessness explodes, families struggle, and people who pay for all of this are taxed, fined, and penalized at every turn. Bread and circus, like this weekend, it's happening. Distractions over solutions, entertainment over liberation. Some of you do see it, and you're afraid to say it out loud because once you do, you can no longer hide behind ceremony, land acknowledgements, or virtue signaling. Others truly believe you're helping, but you're not. The system is compromising our species physically, psychologically, economically, under constant surveillance and control. And this is not an exaggeration. This is an observable fact. When people point this out, they are labeled extreme or crazy. But tell me, what is more insane? Calling out what is plainly happening?
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is phone number 3731, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hey, it's Truth calling into an irrelevant group that's late by 30 minutes. I demand this board change policy to create punishment, such as paid parking for those that are chronically late. Lisa, when this board is on time, then you can try to make demands on the relevancy of people's speeches. Sleepy Joe's recent veiled nonviolent threat at the last BOD suggested that electeds from other areas shouldn't interfere in San Diego's business, or maybe San Diego won't support projects for those other areas anymore. But we had Manuela and Jose Rodriguez from National City interfering in Chula Vista business the other day. I would prefer that National City not be judged by that gaslight clown, but feel free to reconsider supporting county projects, as those clowns not only can't balance a budget, they're also not serving American citizens. Also, remove the policies that are anti-veteran. That includes the unconstitutional line about prohibiting profane and loud language, which directly discriminates against sailors who work or worked on loud jets. Members of my family, as well as several friends, don't hear as well and speak at loud volumes because of their service to this country. So for America's 250th birthday, remove those anti-American phrases immediately. And next time a meeting includes an item that may induce IDS, ice derangement syndrome, make it a special meeting so we can all get home at a decent time. At the last BOD, there was even a moment where some wanted to push through a non-agendized item with little information and zero public comment. Trust, ethics, transparency, missing. I can assure you, if Lisa hadn't done the right thing, I would have called a point of order or initiated a lawsuit later. And I again demand an audit into what was going on with the DBE program, where anyone could claim they're disadvantaged by simply checking a box with zero verification. How many businesses did this? How many tax dollars went out the window? More California fraud. And it reminds me of this great song I found this morning called Break the Cycle by Joker's Republic.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Paul the Bold, followed by the original draw.
Paul the Bold. As a state agency, SANDAG has jurisdiction of some county or city issues. As noted at the last board meeting, policies related to ARJAs and information sharing badly need to be fixed. ICE is too brutal and violative of due process, killing and maiming both American and immigrant here lawfully or not. Stephen Miller's 3,000 per day quota is a way of getting around due process, and as Judge Schlitz pointed out, ICE violated 96 court orders in a month in Minnesota. This is a huge problem, could ruin trust for years, maybe longer. I don't know whether you know this, but ICE also put up to 10,000 half-trained recruits in the field, perhaps contributing to all this. ICE is seriously deficient, as well as apparently not giving a hoot about obeying the law. If ARJAS is allowed to share data with untrustworthy and un-American outfits like ICE, its HSI sub-agency, or BPS, audits need to be more frequent than 1 year, and maybe at random times each month. If not already done, sensitive portions of data, like arrest records, names, addresses maybe, where the children go to school, and so on, should be obscured and unlocked only upon presentation of a password granted to vetted, trustworthy persons. The cloud is easily hacked, by the way, so if you put data there, the feds can do it as easily as Russia or China. IBM is doing well selling more secure mainframes, so you might want to look into this. Information sharing must be
Thank
available.
you. Your time has expired. Next is the original draw, followed by Blair Beekman.
How on earth can you say that you respect free speech when you're infringing upon it by telling people what they can and can't talk about, who they can and can't talk about, when you guys represent the county as a whole for this entity? It may come from a city, from transportation, from law enforcement, or from the county itself. But each of you, when you are engaged in certain things in those areas, it should be known that you're not capable or equipped to be able to be on boards like this when you were claiming that you represent people and you're infringing upon people's rights. But everything you guys do is about control. And Consuelo was right, because it's like it is incremental, because if people saw it, it would be stopped so much quicker. But because you guys are good at pulling wool over people's eyes, they can't even see that you trying to control free speech is about controlling the people and what they can do, so that you incrementally get them to a place where they just capitulate to every demand that you guys do and listen and go, oh my gosh, they really care. This is so virtuous. We're going to save the planet. Yeah, let's get out of our cars. Yeah, let's pay more to drive, because you know what? That's going to make life better. And you guys sit here and you know that your communities are suffering. You know it. You know homelessness is running rampant. What do? You hide it. You try and cover it up. You know child trafficking is going on, but oh my gosh, we can't talk about that, right? Because we're got to protect the child. We can't have people knowing that they're being trafficked. It's so sad to see what you guys do, and that you sit there and you literally like give yourself accolades as though you're doing something that's good for the people, when you're only doing things that are going to make their life harder and harder and harder. And then you try and say that you want to blame shift and say, oh, it's this entity's fault or this person's fault, when you guys need to look in the mirror and see that what you're doing, you're the ones destroying the lives that you're pretending to protect.
Thank you. Last public comment is Blair Beekman.
Hey, Blair Beekman. Hopefully my Zoom will not cut out. Thanks for the meeting this morning. Tough words about we have to have a better standard of public comment time. I understand that how you want a certain language used in the process. It can be difficult for public commenters to know the public meeting language decorum that's appropriate. Excuse me. But at the same time, I'm losing my voice. At the same time, hopefully we can be clear as the public that we can try to work towards that. And I hope you can have patience in the attempts to try. I try. It's sometimes just too difficult for me, but I try. For instance, I want to speak sometimes on items of the city of San Diego that may refer to the SANDAG body as a whole. I hope that sort of thinking can be allowed in the future, figuring out that way to work and understanding of each other. You know, good luck we develop a language together for the public meeting process. I try. It is difficult. Thanks for the patience. I wanted to comment with my remaining minute that I'm worried about ICE. Paula Bold offered really nice words about ICE. To make a reference, City of San Diego has made a proclamation that I hope can be important to all of San Diego County about how to address ICE. For me, the key is cooperation. Well, not cooperation so much, but demilitarization and de-escalation. You may have your own opinions about ICE, but I think we can be in agreement to work in those good terms here in the county of San Diego. And man, we gotta really ask that, have direct dialogue with federal agencies to demand that here at the local level. That they cooperate with us on those terms. And you know, hopefully we can work something out. Thank you.
That concludes our non-agenda public comment, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Michael, do we have any public comments on the consent agenda? Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
We didn't have our buttons to push.
Yes.
My apologies. Anyway, I wanted to bring up something that happened at our last Board of Directors meeting when we had the ARGIS informational item. I'm very concerned what the perception is from the public and what they believe that ARGIS actually does. And I know that all of us want transparency. I mean, we want to make sure all of our residents are safe. So I don't know if this is something that we should agendize. I feel like it shouldn't have to be agendized. I feel like our executive team, which is our chair, vice chair, and our second vice chair, would be able to work with ARGIS. And I know Tony Ray's here today, and then also the Sheriff's Department, because we all want the transparency, and call for an investigation by the California DOJ. That way we could actually show that emergency removal is not actually part of any of the data information sharing, and that what is happening today, because I believe that it is true, that we are only sharing information with investigations and Border Patrol, which is so important to keep our border safe. So I think for transparency and also to do it expeditiously, I don't even think we would probably even have to vote here, but if we do need to vote here, I think we should. But I feel like there have been letters that have been sent on behalf by our executive team, which is, you know, you and Vice Chair LaCava, and then also Second Vice Chair Minto, to send that information to team up. And I know for sure the sheriff is extremely very transparent, always wanting to follow SB 54. And that's really at the end of the day, are we following SB 54? I think the California DOJ, Rob Bonta's office would be able to determine that. And I think just to make it clear to everyone that we want to be transparent and that we want this information shared so that we can show that we're doing the right thing and that ARGIS is not doing anything that is not following SB 54. They take it very seriously. And I just hope that we would be able to move forward with that.
So we're on that path. So we remember what we did was we gave instructions to our general counsel to write a memo, and he's taking his time, but doing it as quickly as he can to be as thorough as possible, going through every single question the entire board had, making sure it's all answered, and then we will receive that memo. And one of the options could very well be to be asking the DOJ, the attorney, Rob Bonta, to be looking into that. In the meantime, you know, we have had communications with our sheriff. Tony's here and can confirm that. I agree with you. I think our sheriff is very transparent and committed to abiding by SB 54. But again, we want to make sure that we're not hasty in what we're doing, but also I thought we made it pretty clear at the last board meeting that what we were up to was to find out if SB 54 was being followed, and if it wasn't, then what we can do about it. Mario, would you like to add anything, or Teddy, or Albert?
No,
Alfred, sorry.
exactly. The memo is being drafted by Office of General Counsel. It's to put everybody up to par on what's doable and not doable. This agency is not a law enforcement agency, therefore the relationship with DOJ and communications patterns are a little bit different. So you will see all this in this memo. And you know, Teddy, if you want to add anything, and then the team, the management here, you all are going to have a very robust conversation, hopefully based on having level playing field of all the information, that white paper that's being developed of what are the areas of opportunity. Let it be the state DOJ, let it be also the local police enforcement, and how they can manage that data and how we can provide them ways of managing that data. So we're putting everything out there. So there's some very robust conversations and objective conversations that can be had by you, the board, and the exec committee.
So I guess for me, I'm part of the board, obviously. I don't feel like if we don't have that DOJ investigation, a full investigation to say, hey, they have followed it, they're doing what they need to do, I don't even feel like I can make any sort of decision or anything. So in my opinion, I guess my question would it be possible to do the two at the same time, where our council is getting the information together of what we could do, but we also can prove up that SB 54 is being followed, because we all want to make sure we're following that. That is our state law. And, you know, I say this oftentimes, we have to follow state law, federal law. I know one of the speakers made a couple of allegations. We are not connected to ERO, but we need to make sure that we're proving that. And I don't think we can do that internally. I think we really need to have the DOJ actually do that so that we can have that.
Let Teddy respond, please.
Yeah, for sure.
So Mayor Jones, I appreciate the comments. I think if I could just have a recommendation to not only you, to the entire board, when we complete the memo, which is going to be quite lengthy, it's going to list a number of options that the board can take. My recommendation is, once you, upon that receipt and review, then you could decide along with the board as to any actions you direct from either my office or you know, SANDAG as a whole. But until we do that, why don't we take a look at the options? Because I think the memo is going to explain a lot of different things, and it'll provide a healthy list of things that are on the table that we can action. And obviously one of those actions are, as you described, requesting the DOJ to take this initiative. Obviously it's up to the DOJ as to whether they want to lead that effort or not, but we can always request. But my recommendation is the memo is going to be coming soon. So why doesn't not only you, but the entire board review that, and then we could have a path to what's going to be directed to me or SANDAG as a whole.
In other words, we just don't want to have the board acting somewhat with blind spots. And so once we get this memo, which will be quickly, and then we'll be able to make informed decisions what the next step would be.
Well, so I still think that the issue does remain, though, that if we don't know as a board for sure that SB 54 is being followed, I mean, I don't want to say I don't care about the options, but I don't really want politics to be involved in this. I think if our executive leadership just said, hey, we're doing this to see what our issues are, what our options are. However, we're also working to actually get clarity on the situation by an oversight of ARGIS. And I don't know if Tony can speak to this. I don't know if he wants to speak to this. I have no idea. But I feel like, I honestly am going to, I'm a contract city, just like many of our cities. I actually am planning on talking to the sheriff about it then too, because I feel like if we don't do it, someone should be doing it. Someone should be moving this forward to have that oversight, to prove it, so that we as a board have that information. Because, I mean, no offense, but until I personally know that it's being followed by an oversight of ARGIS, which would be the DOJ, I don't feel like I could even make any informed decision.
So, Mayor, one of the things that the memo's looking is there are certain protocols of how to communicate agencies with the Department of Justice, with this the State Department of Justice. I'm not an expert here, but what it appears to be that when there are requests similar to what you are mentioning, which is extremely logical, there is a specific protocol of communicating with DOJ. It's not just sending a letter or picking up the phone. And that's what the memo is also looking at, those protocols of how to communicate, because at the end of the day, SANDAG is not a law enforcement agency. So therefore, the protocols for us to communicate with DOJ are different than a traditional law enforcement agency. I hope I'm putting it in the right words.
Yeah, and also I think, Mayor Jones, the one thing to remember is that the San Diego Sheriff, and I'll have Tony correct me if I'm wrong, but various police departments, especially the Sheriff's Department, has internal affairs, and they have departments that are dedicated to see if there are bad actors. And it doesn't matter if it's a federal agent or any police officer, if they're accessing the system improperly, they have their own stopgaps to investigate that and see if there's a violation of not only SB 54, but any kind of things. If you're looking up somebody you're not supposed to be looking up, an ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, that's one example. You could be looking up for improper purposes. And the memo will explain that, and I'm going to include as an exhibit, there's, before you even ask it asks you, what are you looking for your purpose? And it'll say, hey, for criminal inspection purposes, I'm paraphrasing here, or immigration purposes. And if you click, very few people ever click on the immigration purposes. So it's purely for that. And also it doesn't even provide a lot of the information for immigration purposes anyway. So there's kind of, as Mario was saying, there's a couple of levels before you even get to the DOJ, is that internal affairs for each of the police departments, they have a proactive approach to looking at this stuff. I think, and Tony, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the city of Chula Vista, I think, has a lead person, but they have a team of 5 or 6 people that just kind of do this stuff to make sure that things are being followed. So even before you get to the DOJ investigation, I think the police departments on their own are seeing if there's anything there before they even report it up to the DOJ. Because right now there's scant evidence of any wrongdoing, because the police departments are kind of the first stopgap before you even get there.
So I'm a little confused, because I thought there were 0 allegations that it was being used improperly. It was a blanket. It could be used, but then I remember during the, I don't know. I hate to put Tony on the spot, but that there's no immigration information actually contained within the system, which what you're saying is there's a screen that asks about
Tony
it?
can clarify. There's no immigration information that's there. But there, and Tony can explain why that button's still there.
I'm getting a little concerned about being off the agenda here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're having a big discussion on something that's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
So can we just leave it at that? We know exactly what you're saying. It was one of the first things we thought of. We're working on it through our general counsel to make sure that the board knows everything that's available to them. And it's not as easy as just picking up and saying, Attorney General Bonta, we got a problem.
And I guess, and I appreciate that. And I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just, I like to make informed decisions, as you well know. I bring it up 1,000 times. I just don't feel like without that information,
we're going to get
feel like it has to be done at the same time.
We're going to get the information. So, okay. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, then I guess maybe we don't have to ask Tony. I don't want to get us in trouble of being off topic.
Was there anything you needed to correct, Tony? Otherwise, I'm getting a little nervous about not being
Just really
agendized.
quickly, less than 30 seconds, that there is absolutely no immigration information contained within the ARGIS system. I absolutely support the idea of an audit. ARGIS should be audited too by the federal government. The chair is absolutely correct. We have a different way of communicating to the state since we're not a law enforcement agency. And I believe the memo that Teddy's putting together, which ARGIS is helping to support, will have many, many options. And that'll be among the options and the recommendations that we have to do when we receive that there. But I thank you for that support. I absolutely agree with that we should audit ourselves and our users.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to now move on to the consent agenda. Michael, do we have any public comments on the consent agenda?
We do. We have 1 in person and we have 4 online. So we're now open the public comment on consent agenda. So please limit your comments to items on the consent agenda only. If comments are not related to consent agenda, you will be asked to stay on topic. And if you do not stay on topic, you will be muted. So first is Cesar Javier, followed by Truth Online.
Cesar and Fulita family, this small political unit, District 9, City of San Diego. We learned from my graduate study, education, that repetition is a respectable principle in teaching and learning. We speak again and again not to bother the NGO SANDAG because they have a limited function. 3.1 and 3.2, the security is looking after me if I am out of the agenda item. We favor this and let us approve this. However, 3.1, which is very clear, we have seen many times our names, but what is name relevant to the subject that is being voiced?
Please speak to the topic at hand.
Lawmakers. 3.2, we pray, working together, thinking together, and hopefully we suggest and be fulfilled. Let us put the priority as the meat and substance of our agenda. TJ, pollution victims. Superintendent Aguirre has declared January 28 that people there, Councilor Acaba, District 8 particularly, they are sick and dying. And you have no registration who were dead since 1993. We pray divine intervention.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Truth Online, followed by the original draw.
Hey there, item 3.1. The minutes say Minto voted no for a secondary national city project. I'm convinced he was trying to look cool by going against the grain. I'm also convinced that the minutes need to say who arrived at exactly what time to the meeting, aka who was late and made everybody wait, especially today, 30 minutes. Shame on you. Shame on every single person that is late. Time is either money or sleep. How dare you steal that from the public? Item 3.2, the February 27th agenda. That consent calendar is a little bit heavy. It's a little concerning to see the Transnet program and transit-related revenues in consent. If there are different estimates than before, that could warrant some extra words. Maybe it depends on what it's about, because there's not really a description. That's kind of a problem too. For 5 years worth of tax dollar dole out, you'd think there'd be something worth discussing, but I guess not. It's also very concerning to see the 2026 legislative program shoved into consent. That's an item that will likely provoke discussion amongst both committee and board members. Or is everybody suddenly on the same page for legislative priorities? Not everything's about housing, you know, and not everything requires robust and objective political communications, commentary that waste an entire day. Oftentimes, the law is black and white, and some people just don't like American law or law enforcement because it sounds like the consent contains omissions, much like Argus, thanks to SB 54. Thank you.
Next is Consuelo, followed by the original draw.
Okay, so for the record, this comment applies to the entire consent calendar. Thank you. SANDAG repeatedly claims its policies are locally driven, yet your own documents tell a different story. The language you use, regional governance, sustainability, frameworks, climate alignment, VMT travel reduction. VMT reduction, densification, behavioral incentives is not organic or local. It is lifted from the United Nations Agenda for the 21st Century and 2030 frameworks and mirrors the World Economic Forum policy guidance. This is not speculation. This is documented alignment. Agenda 21 was explicitly designed to reshape land use, transportation, housing, and human behavior under the banner of sustainability. SANDAG's Regional Transportation Plan, sustainable documents in exact lockstep with those goals. Centralized planning, reduced individual mobility, forest density, and managed living. And the UN, nothing in the UN Charter, the World Economic Forum, and any global body supersedes the sovereignty of the people of this county. Yet your policies consistently reflect priorities set outside this region and outside this nation. And before anyone attempts to interrupt or redirect this comment, let me be clear, under the California Brown Act section 54953C, the public that has the right to address the legislative body on items within jurisdiction, including consent items, without being required to agree with the body's policy direction. Thank you. Pointing out policy alignment is not disruption, it's participation. Anyways, okay, so what is concerning is that these sweeping changes are bundled into consent calendars passed quietly with minimal scrutiny, while their long-term impacts fundamentally alter how people live, move, and exist. And again,
thank you. Your time has expired. Next is the original draw, followed by Blair Beekman.
And then Consuelo. And, I want to know when in your, meeting agendas, are you guys going to actually do things that are going to be beneficial to our community? Right now, you're more concerned about protecting illegal immigrants and then claiming that you want to protect the border. You didn't give a crap about the border when they were flooding over in the millions over the last many years. And, you didn't care that they were being exploited, raped, and murdered along the way, and that the children were trafficked. And you care more about impeding people's ability to travel than to be able to freely live their life in a way that is not infringed upon in every way. I mean, everything you guys do is like, until you want to change behaviors. You don't want to protect people from fires. You want to impede people's ability to drive, charge them more. They can't even figure out how some are going to eat, as we can tell, because of choices that have been made in the cities and the counties across our nation. So things are being pulled back because of those choices. So you don't actually do things that make it easier on people and make it so their lives, that they can go about their day and actually enjoy life. I mean, people are just trying to survive in our communities. And now you're more concerned about people who have violated the law coming here, people that have even raped and murdered children, and just other people in the community.
Stay on topic?
I am on topic, because this is talking about what you guys are doing in your meetings. And you aren't doing things that are, and in fact, you're trying to infringe upon people's First Amendment still, while claiming that you care about it and you want to protect it. When are you guys going to actually do what you say? But you double speak and you don't stand for the community. You're doing things that are outside of our nation and putting it in here. And you're punishing people for just having an opinion about it. So shame on you guys. Look in the mirror and start really seeing the devil that's within you.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hi, Blair Beekman. My Zoom may cut out again. Believe it or not, I was in San Diego for a short amount of time, and then I'm traveling. I'm in Hawaii right now, camping out. If as a comment, on the minute from last time, you're working on transnet issues. Really good luck that accountability with tech is a part of building the future of bicycle and pedestrian, better exchanges for those projects. I think tech accountability is incredibly important to that process. And we're looking towards an organic whole as how to build our future, and to address sustainability. You really got to address accountability with tech, and that it's clear and understandable. with the public, and that it's not hidden and secretive and only for a select small number to understand. We really have to be open and clear, and that's building our sustainable future. So good luck in those sort of efforts. I wanted to also comment that, about the Argus item that was talked about. For public meeting procedures, you have a little time for public comment from, board persons that this consent time is the only time we can talk about that public comment as the public or make public comment. So about Argus issues, I think Councilperson Moreno has really started a process. Board Person Moreno has started a process that will be coming back to you. Refer to her directives as a beginning thought. And also, to be clear, I think Argus has to be set the standard for best practices. There are already 2 or 3 data collection law enforcement agencies in San Diego. Argus should be, working on best practices. And I want to figure out a system how to do that in the coming months. Public oversight as part of a shared process with SANDAG is an important step, I feel, better than DOJ. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you.
Next is Paul the Bold, followed by Andrea Ebbing.
Paul Bold. I read that there was a big traffic accident in Coronado this morning, which might have delayed the mayor. Review of the agenda, item 3.8, conflict of interest code updates is not routine and may deserve a long discussion unsuited to the consent calendar. Item 3.9, a Transnet fee increase disguised as an adjustment, apparently charged to the public, should be discussed as a separate item. And item 3.10, the proposed 2026 legislative program and other items, is a duplicate of item 5, but has not gone through a public hearing. Items 3.8 and 9 need to be pulled for separate discussion, and item 3.10 needs to be combined with item 5. 3.1 meeting minutes. Again, here comes the list of names like the Oscars, who did what on the consent agenda, what was consented to. Surprise! It's over in seconds, not minutes even. On item 5, I'm puzzled as to why Mayor Duncan would second both the original motion and the substitute motion. Maybe to see who's paying attention? Anyway, more stuff the public has to look up and listen to if it wants details of what really went on. Very disappointing. Is SANDAG so understaffed that it can't do proper minutes? And Audra, the problem is not so much these little incremental changes as too many people are reluctant to speak on what may seem like minor issues, but more of us are, actually. We are tired
Thank
of
you. Your
being
time has
told.
expired. Our last public comment is Andrea Ebbing.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing commenting on the consent agenda. I also want to comment that the meeting minutes are so insufficient. There is, looks like what you guys are putting in there for our comments is just our names that we commented. We're members of the community that take our time. We're very busy. We work. We have our own lives to live, but we come to these meetings to participate so that the people we pay, which are you, can take our comments into consideration, right? Like we don't do this it's not like fun. It's not theater. Nobody's trying to be famous. We need to hold people accountable so they can stop hurting the community. So our names and that we commented with nothing that we said is insufficient. You have a duty to act in the best interest of the public, exercise loyalty, transparency, and disclose your conflict of interests. You're supposed to manage assets prudently and report honestly, but that's not happening, is it? Because when we were in that meeting and Argus was being shown, somebody even pointed, look, everything's just the same between 2024 and 2025, as if we are 5-year-olds. Nobody is that dumb. It's statistically impossible for those numbers to have been pulled, which is why I commend and I support Rebecca Jones for what she just did, and everyone pummeled her because everyone afraid. Rebecca, you hit a raw nerve, and I encourage you to continue your stance. Nothing was said about John Duncan's gift cards being dropped off for cash, redeemable for cash to Amy Beebe on October 3rd, 2020. That was discussed when you tried to stop me from talking. And then my Apex Recovery ex's wife dropped off on video, on
Stay
camera.
on topic.
Okay, sorry. Well, there was no comment on that. I mean, that's pretty important. That's a member of your committee who was 30 minutes late today and got into office how? Looks like a little bit of bribery. You should probably look into it. Audit yourselves. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment on consent agenda, Chair.
Thanks so much. Are there any member comments on the consent agenda? If not, may I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Moved by LaCava, second by Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, that passes unanimously. We are now going to move on to the proposed board policy updates. Chair Fisher, would you like to introduce this?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. So the renovations and changes to board policy have been ongoing for many years now. I came into the audit committee earlier last year and found this conversation to be kind of interesting and why it's taken so long. I was lucky enough to have Councilmember Zito, as the former audit committee chair there, to guide me through. He gave me a great list of papers. I was kind of referencing this morning that this has come back to the board twice from 22 and 23. Has been reviewed by 2 different audit committees and 2 different IPAs. And so it's been a work in progress, a work of a labor of love. There are some changes that would differentiate the audit committee a little bit from some of the other committees, and also changes that were necessary due to some changes at SANDAG and the policies, procedures, and additional staff. Before I move forward, I'd like to turn some time over to Councilmember Zito, and maybe he can give a little bit more of a background on this than I have.
Sure, thank you, if that's okay. I guess I'd start out with the first comment. You did give great background there. Is that how much time do I have if you want some history? No, just kidding. As you mentioned, this has been going on for a while. And I just wanted to, refresh a little bit of the memory and address one of the more recent changes and provide commentary around that. But one, this came up from the audit committee. I'd acknowledge Board Policy 39 has not really changed much at all since the formation of the audit committee. It was a new committee and the policy was created, and we've been living under those policies since that time. About 4 years ago, the audit committee had some observations and felt like some changes would be useful, and we've been making those proposals. And actually, Jack, sorry to correct you on one item, it's actually seen 3 audit committees now. It's gone back to 3. So it's been to the exec twice, it's been to the board once, and to the audit committee 3 times. And 3 different audit committees, more times than that. But anyway, the genesis of this was a desire to acknowledge a couple of challenges, one of which is the audit committee requires extensive knowledge. It takes a very long time to ramp up and really participate and be effective on that committee. And so being able to address that by lengthening terms and staggering terms was one of the things we wanted to address. So that's addressed in there as well. 2, when this came up, it was a time of significant controversy at SANDAG. We still have our controversies, but we felt like strengthening all perception of audit committee independence is important. And so some of the changes around like public member selection process and how the leadership of the audit committee is selected was derived from that, just making sure that this committee truly looks like it's independent and providing a true separate entity role from the overall direction that's coming from the agency. And then 3rd, the one other comment that I wanted to note was that the one recent change that came in this time is as I've been involved, I've noticed over the last 6 years, every single time, like 7 years at this point, every single time we've had to grant exceptions to the board policy that says you need 3 years service on the board. And I don't like having to do these exceptions because I think it's very important that the board members have experience before they serve on the committee. So I don't, but We are now recommending reducing that to 2 years because in the last 7 years, if it was a 2-year term as opposed to a 2-year history as opposed to 3 years, most of those exceptions wouldn't have been necessary. So I'm encouraging this from the perspective of I think it's important to not get in the habit of doing exceptions to that policy. So let's shorten it a little bit and make it so it's not so necessary to do that. But I'm here to answer any questions about the content as well of the history. But Jack, I'm sure you can handle most of them. Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll go to public comments first and then member discussion.
Sure, we have one in person. If you're online, please raise your hand regarding item 4. We'll go with Cesar Javier, followed by Truth Online.
Thank you, Uncle Sam, Cesar and Purita. We welcome changes. Changes as a result of changing time, changing challenges. And that's what thinkers are for. Thank you, Sermito, for that power, energy. That's true. Why only once every 3 years? When we have the money, when we have talented, top-notch auditors, how much do we pay for that, Councilor Lakaba, at city level? We have the CRO, but they only investigate the process, never the impact. How will you explain that? Under God. We strongly suggest that policy changes goes with the change of time. If we cannot solve the problem of Tijuana pollution, there must be a policy to solve it. In our humble knowledge, we presented to you, city officials, elected officials, expected to do something to save the lives of San Diegans, District 8. What have you done? That's why we have here as your counterforce in a CISO, so that you will know what's going on in the front line. Policy change. SANDAG is NGO, but part of the link, a strong link for human survival. And the weakest link we have identified, 11 elected officials of the show window, core city of or region of San Diego. Thank you, Uncle Sam.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Truth, followed by the original draw. This is item 4.
What kind of stuck with me listening to the comment is Cesar said show window. I feel like sometimes that's exactly what we're looking at. Wasn't this policy on the audit committee choosing their own chair approved a year ago? I feel like I remember that conversation already happened, but I guess not. I guess you guys just keep bringing stuff back and board never gets around to it. I'm a little concerned that some executive committee members may be getting the acronym IPA confused for something other than an auditor. Maybe that's why people were 30 minutes late today. So the requirement for board member being on audit was reduced from 3 to 2 years to make an exception. That's interesting. And I find it interesting that now the bar seems to have been lowered for public members after I remember saying something about double standards where appointed board members don't meet auditing qualifications, yet public members must. Elected officials are even allowed to have criminal records. I think that's going on too. So the term change to policy 4.2.2 about desired professional standards versus minimum makes sense to me. Of course, everyone would prefer somebody with professional expertise. As long as the board pays attention to the candidates, there should be little issue with potentially having more candidates to choose from for audit. Kind of like removing the lack of oversight of the DBE program. I'm glad there's transparency on who an outside government finance expert is, but I don't see why an alternate should get a say on a screening committee. I'd like to hear justification for that. And I also do remember talking about asking years ago who the outside government finance expert is. I never got an answer on that. Section 4.2.9 on page 5 needs to be corrected to say needs to be replaced during the same recruitment period. It's currently missing the letter D. Policy 042 on page 3 says if anyone has questions on complaints to contact Mary Kay. Is that accurate or should it say Courtney Ruby with a new phone number? And I think David and Jack's number should also be included because I just want to help these guys make some new friends. I think they're worthy. So thank you.
Next, the original draw, followed by Consuelo. A reminder, this is item number 4.
It's interesting when you guys have all these policies and you make changes, you delete some, you try and say that you're going to like protect whistleblowers and all this stuff, but you have to have a policy to do it. You guys violate your policies all the time. So it doesn't even matter what you do. This is all for show, because at the end of the day, it's like you guys, have all these audit reports or things that come forward showing fraud, waste, and abuse. That doesn't stop. It's just like you show that you engage with, entities that are like, just constantly asking for more money, and violating your contracts. And then you're like, but we're going to contract with them again. So it's like, does any of this really matter? I mean, at the end of the day, you're just going to continue engaging in fraud, waste, and abuse and, wasting people's money, making sure that you're protecting your own and the entity, and that people aren't, because you're not law enforcement, so you're not going to be able to really hold them accountable. You'll just give them payoffs at the end of the day, and good retirement plans and things like that. I mean, but at least they're not there anymore, right? You did your part to get them out, so they're not going to be, because they kind of ruined it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, dang, you guys got caught doing that. We're going to have to get rid of you, but it's okay. We'll give you a severance package. It's just, it's funny because you guys think that you pull wool over so many people's eyes, and you do. A lot of people. I mean, so we're paying you pretty well to do that. But it doesn't matter what policies you make, to make it seem like there's going to be some kind of accountability when, all people have to do is really just pay attention and listen to the things that you guys say and watch what you do and look at the world around us and see that you're all a bunch of frauds. And one day the people will, be fed up enough that there won't be any need for you guys. But until then, happy fraud.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Consuelo, followed by Paul the Bold.
Okay, Consuelo here. Yeah, considering this is the agency that used to use QuickBooks, or I don't know if they still do, or is it now TurboTax? I don't know. It's kind of insane. Whatever, funny. Let's see. What is concerning is that these, I just want to finish what I didn't get to finish on consent, so I'm going to do that before I go into this. What is concerning is that these sweeping changes are bundled into consent calendars, passed quietly with minimal scrutiny.
This is item number 4, Consuelo.
Got it. Yep. It all ties in. Omissions. Thank you. Brown Act. Thank you for abiding by the Brown Act, Michael. While their long-term impacts fundamentally alter how people live, move, and exist, you are not merely planning infrastructure, you are engineering behavior. I've said this so many meetings, and you are doing so while insisting this is local, voluntary, and beneficial, when in reality, it follows a global blueprint the public never voted on. Transparency would require honesty about where these policies originate. Integrity would require admitting the alignment, and accountability would require aligning full public debate, not procedural silencing. This body works for the people of San Diego County, not the UN, not the World Economic Forum, and not global governance models that treat humans as variables to be managed. That concludes my comment.
The last public comment is Paul the Bold.
Paul Bold, last but not least. Thank you, Andrea. The minutes certainly need an upgrade. Policy 39, Section 3.1.13, removing the Audit Committee's authority to recommend internal control guidelines, seems to encourage fraud. Anyone, especially the Audit Committee, should be able to recommend guidelines to detect and prevent fraud. Me, you, anyone else. If the committee is recommending follow-up procedures for an audit in Section 6.9, it should certainly be able to recommend anti-fraud guidelines. Policy 42, limiting the categories of improper activity, section 5.2, is itself improper. You need to add category 5, other improper activity, to this section and remove these from the form. If you want whistleblowers to complain, do not limit their complaints from the start. Not sure why you want people to call Mary Kushmashrab with questions. She was a great auditor, but she's no longer at SANDAG. New policy 43. If you are going to have whistleblowers waive their confidentiality in writing, why don't you include it on Form 40 on the form in policy 42? Section 4 should also prohibit retaliation against witnesses named on the form or in any related administrative or court proceeding. It's a lot of fuss over, it seems you're trying to limit our constitutional rights here. And,
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Very good. Thank you, Michael, and commenters. Okay, we're on to member comments. Yeah, Mayor Jones.
Sorry, I just have one question, and I'm assuming that it is, but I always try to ask. I'm assuming that all the changes actually still align with AB 805, correct? Because it was a legislative that started the audit. Okay, perfect. Just want to double check. That's it. Thanks.
First Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the good work. Updating these policies is one of my favorite kinds of work. So going back and making sure they're really relevant today. So thank you for the brand new policy 43, the whistleblower protection, having that embedded and separate, I think is particularly important. So thank you for that good work. And then on 39, just wanted to follow up on a couple of quick questions. 3.1.6, we're changing oversee to monitor. I assume monitor is more appropriate for an independent. Okay, I'm getting nodding heads. And the question that was raised by the public, and I had that 3.1.13, which was direction to the board to come up with internal controls. We are doing or have internal controls, so it's kind of irrelevant, right? Which does not prevent you as the auditor to actually look at internal controls and opine on them, right? So this isn't, it's not exclusionary at all. So, all right, thank you, Jack, for your good work and everybody that worked on this, and I'll move the item.
I actually have a couple of other things that I would like to bring up. First of all, thank you for bringing up AB 805. And one of the things I would like to point out about AB 805 is it does not make a distinction between any of the policy committees. All of them are the same, including the audit committee. And so I do believe that it is important to keep it that the chair of the board would appoint the chair of the audit committee, just like they appoint the chair of every other committee, and the vice chair of the audit committee, just like they appoint the vice chair of every other committee. There could be a slippery slope that we're creating if we go otherwise, so that pretty soon the regional planning committee wants to, appoint their own chair, and the transportation committee wants to appoint their own chair. And that's not something that I would be in support of, not just as the chair now, but over the years in the past as well. So I'm not supportive of that change. I think that it should remain the way it is. I'd also like to point out that the IPA is independent from management, but they're hired by and evaluated by the board. So the audit committee is not independent of the board. They're not like the ITALC. The audit committee is monitoring, as the word is, and overseeing things. But it's, I think, a distinction that's important to make. There's a couple of things that I should get really specific on. So I have a big question on item 5.1, which is the selection of the independent performance auditor. It says the independent performance auditor shall serve a now 3-year term and shall be selected by the board on the basis of qualifications and experience, which include but are not limited to. We hire the IPA. I don't know where there's terms. I'm confused about that. Am I missing something? But we just hire her. the IPA. We don't have terms for her.
Yeah, Chair, you're correct. I'll be honest, we had a lot more content that we focused on. 5.1 perhaps would have been oversight. Something that I didn't see. I'm not sure if Councilmember Zito has any insight, but I'm not sure. The urgency, I think this was from the of the audit committee.
Yeah, so this is literally just changing the language from 2 to 3. And it leads to this came up during the last recruitment cycle when we brought in, ended up bringing in Courtney, very lucky to be able to do that. But which was that there was a huge amount of concern that if we only offer a 2-year contract, that we won't get any good candidates. And so the recommendation at that point in time, which was actually approved by the board in Courtney's recruitment process, was to offer Courtney a 3-year contract as opposed to a 2-year contract. So you could change the language from term to contract. I'm not an attorney. I don't know what that means, but the intent is to say whoever gets brought in with a 3-year contract as opposed to a 2-year contract, to try to, because, a lot of times these people are moving from distances. They want to have some guarantee of a certain amount of term. So that's where the history of that comes from.
Okay, Mayor Jones, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, in my city, we have a certain amount of years on the contract. Sometimes we add extra years to a current contract that would still at will. And so like if we literally were unhappy with the performance, we could still terminate the employee, even if they have a three-year contract.
So that would be in alignment.
I just want to make sure it would be the
term to contract, which makes some sense. Any attorneys have any problems with that? No. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, please.
So in contrast, the city of San Diego actually goes 5-year, and it has a little bit to do with actually attracting good talent, that can make that commitment, but it's also recognizing the independence that you're going to be there for a long term. And I don't know exactly the terms in which we can remove either the auditor or the independent budget analyst, but it's to say you're not at risk of being let go because we suddenly don't like the findings you're making. So there's even a little bit, there's a larger discussion that probably can be taken up at a different time going forward, but.
Thank you. I'm going to just kind of keep going through this because it's been a long time coming and I've had a lot of reviews of it. So we just recently did the compensation for our independent auditor and agreed with what the audit committee had said, but I would have liked to have seen the evaluation. And so if we could add in 3.1.5 and 3.111, somewhere in there, that the evaluation and salary recommendations should be sent to the board to review, both of them, prior to confirming the IPA's annual compensation. So that the board gets to see the evaluation. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that, which is, we've had different philosophies on where that occurs, but as long as, the previous auditor wanted everything to be done in open session, and I think that's fine, except this is a performance review, so just acknowledging that would be done in closed session. That's all, as opposed to open session, unless requested by the actual auditor. That's all.
Where's Amberlyn and Teddy there?
Amberlyn, Teddy, do you guys want to make any comments? I think it may be good that Office of General Counsel is sitting here for any possible additional questions.
I'm liking a lot of these changes, the 5-year one. Okay, so the other one that I have a little bit of issue with is the public member selection process. Over the years, how it's been is that the chair selects a board member, and then the chair selects a member agency financial professional, and then the two of them together, they select, I guess, among a number of candidates that are of member agencies that have financial experience, and then they vet the public members. What's recommended in here is that who's added in there is the actual independent auditor herself, as well as the CEO or the CFO of upper management. And I do have a little problem with that because it is the audit committee who does the evaluation and the recommendation for compensation of the IPA. And so it seems to be a little conflict. And that given that the CEO and the IPA are separated. They're independent. I don't know that the CEO should be there, but I do not have any problem with having the a audit member, board member, an audit committee board member, and an audit committee public member on that selection committee as well. So does anybody?
Chair, I just want to make sure, because the copy that I have in front of me doesn't mention the CEO, it has a CFO.
It says, okay, I'm looking at 4.2.3, page 16 of 20. It says board member or board member alternate sitting, and I'm reading the red part, sitting on the audit committee, a public member or public member alternate sitting on the audit committee. I'm good with that. SANDAG's independent performance auditor or OIPA upper management level staff person. That might be where I'm seeing that. SANDAG's chief financial officer or an upper management level staff person from SANDAG finance, and one outside government finance expert. So I would recommend that we do not have the IPA, the OIPA, the upper management staff level, the SANDAG's chief financial officer, or an upper management level staff person from the SANDAG finance, but would agree with the public member and the audit member and one outside government finance. The chair of the audit committee, the independent performance auditor, and the chief financial officer shall appoint the members of the committee. So I think that would have to be rewritten to be consistent with that suggestion. Does anybody have any comments on what I'm suggesting, that for the public member selection process, that there not be any internal conflicts of who they're overseeing and recommending policy or compensation changes?
Sure, we did discuss that in particular. That we were aware of some of the concerns that previously that this document change had. The having somebody from OIPA or the office was important so that they can understand the process. You know, one of the requirements is somebody understands what the office does and the process they go through. And so who better to speak to that than somebody from the office? I would be agreeable that if we just left it from somebody from the office, I think that would be good. Only because, again, it provides insight to what the office does and the requirements that somebody from the public members would need, to maybe a little bit more insight to during the selection process, they could test the skills needed, I guess.
So you don't think that the public members and the board member who is on the audit committee could convey that information to potential applicants for a public committee, public member?
They may be able to superficially provide, you know, an overview, but some of the intrinsic part that's happened, obviously, I couldn't explain in great detail what OIPA does, nor the office. So just somebody who could provide that. So, and I understand the point of it perhaps being a conflict, because that member, that public member is likely to be somebody who is on the performance review as well. Right. So I'm absolutely aware of that. So. Well,
maybe part of the process is that they're educated by that person, but not part of the selection part. Because I mean, you know, the concern is you appoint a friend and you get a sweetheart deal. I mean,
it's a volunteer position, so I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, for the salary recommendations or for the evaluation, it's just to me, it's a conflict just sitting there waiting to happen. And
absolutely no, but you know, I think it's one of those things where somebody with that, again, that good based on it, we've had, I wouldn't say problems, but we've had delays in having lots of people apply. That's why we've taken it down a little bit. And so again, I understand the independence part, you know, but again, I think somebody from the office, or at least some type of way to get that information to the selection committee so that they're aware of having the ability to do it. So.
Yeah. I'm not involved in this, but hearing it, can I provide, I'm hearing both of you. Would it be that during the process, a member of OIPA will be there to provide information, but it's not part of making a decision, right? It's like when we staff are here and we're asked, hey, can you explain this? Or Tony, can you come and explain this or whatever? And then we explained it, but then we step away because it's a decision of the committees, the board. So I think that's what you're trying to say. And I think the chairwoman is expressing her concern of having somebody from staff voting on selecting somebody. So I think there could be a very clear description that the team will be there available for responding questions and providing information, but not making a vote. And again, this is just me hearing the conversation.
Mario, I appreciate that. You're always coming up with great ideas. And I think that may be a good thing that as the selection committee goes forward with selecting the public members, maybe they're briefed by somebody from some that's either Auditor Ruby or perhaps somebody from the office who can brief the selection committee on the processes. So I would absolutely think that's amendable to me.
Yeah. Any other committee members have any comments on that? Yeah, sure.
Thanks,
Council
Chair.
Member Z.
Just adding a comment. It's interesting, Mario, you bring that up. I wonder if you're reading minds here, but to provide some context, there was a little bit of concern about this in the original idea, which is this recommendation goes way back. And when the audit committee was forming the original a recommendation, the thought was that the staff member from SANDAG and that the staff member from OIPA or the OIPA wouldn't actually have a vote. And it would turn into two-step process. But what they would have, the two-step process was where they would have a vote is do the candidates meet minimum qualifications? But what they wouldn't have a vote was who they actually pick. And that was deemed to be a little bit onerous, meaning, is lengthening the process too much. And so I think the idea here of perhaps those two individuals get to participate but don't actually vote has some merit outside of they should expect to be voicing a very strong opinion if they don't think they meet a minimum threshold. And just a little bit of a counter, I realize public agencies are a little bit different than private agencies, but with 30 years of private corporate experience, and if you read corporate books about good management practices, there's lots of books out there, including ones by Marcus Buckingham and as well as another by Patrick Lencioni that talk about it's very important for direct reports to be interviewing and involved with the appointment of whoever they're being supervised by. That's very common in business and is considered a best practice. That people who are going to get managed by somebody are involved in that interview process. So just putting that out there as well. Okay.
Any other comment? Okay. I've got one other one, and that is, okay, so 6.1.4. Prior to questioning any person under oath, so this is basically kind of, I guess, subpoena power, right? The independent performance auditor shall seek legal counsel from the Office of General Counsel or independent outside legal counsel under contract with the independent performance auditor to SANDAG regarding the relevant legal issues and document the reasons why and the need for questioning must be done under oath. So this, I think, might not take into consideration that now the general counsel is hired by the board. And so maybe it should just end with Office of the General Counsel, period. But then also add in regarding the relevant legal issues and document the reasons why and need for that. Yeah, Courtney.
Yes, Chair. It was approved by the audit committee that OIPA and the audit committee can hire their own counsel. So it is separate from the board counsel.
So I didn't know that we're adding another attorney.
It's if it's on a as needed basis. If we come up with an issue and there's could be an apparent conflict, then we would contract out. So that's why the language provides both. The Office of the General Counsel.
I'm not a lawyer, so I need to ask, is that legal? I guess legal, or is that appropriate?
I think my concern with that is if the independent auditor is hiring outside legal counsel, where's the duty of loyalty for that outside counsel?
So this actual issue has been taken up in audit committee prior to me coming on board in relation to the independent counsel. So given that OIPA's purview is to audit anything in SANDAG, there can be issues that come up that could be a conflict for SANDAG's counsel, but we have to ensure that it is being analyzed from a perspective of what is the issue and how, and the independence of the auditor's office is fully considered in that and a legal opinion is brought. And it is, so that's the
So I think
purpose for the audit committee as well.
But that's my concern is that if you're hiring, if I was a lawyer, let's say I wasn't SANDAG's general counsel and you're saying I'm being hired, who am I representing? Because the independent auditor is not an independent entity. You still are SANDAG. I get you have to do your independent option. Since I have an independent duty, I'm not hired by Mario, but the board hired me directly, like they hired you directly. If you came to me and said, we have an issue, maybe, hey, as the general counsel, we would hire we would decide on the lawyer, but the decision on the lawyer to do an independent analysis, they could provide the reports to that, and you would have a duty independent to report to the board what their findings are. It would still be, the duty of loyalty would still be the SANDAG, but the independent auditor is not an independent entity. That's why I'm saying that I don't know how a law firm outside, if you wanted to go get a law firm, would be interested in doing or can do that type of work. And I don't know if you've tried to do that or not in the past, how robust the marketplace was in trying to find that. That's the difficulty, is that since I have an independent duty, if I see something going wrong and you tell me, hey, Teddy, there's something going wrong here, I go, wow, you know what, let's get someone to look into it. We would hire a law firm and we would report that back to the board. So that's what I'm saying.
I hear you.
The difficulty is I don't know how someone else from the outside would be able to do that.
It is actually a very critical issue in independent auditors. So in fact, the city of San Diego just took to the ballot and it was approved that they could hire independent legal counsel. So because you have the auditee is, I'm auditing SANDAG. So if we come up with an issue that SANDAG, and this has happened in the past where the corporation may not, is the duty of the attorney is to protect the corporation. My duty is to protect, to ensure that the information that we're presenting is that there's accurate in relation to the law, in relation to transparency, that my mandate is not to protect the corporation. My mandate is to ensure that we're reporting out on the accurate findings. So that at times can create an inherent conflict.
Well, I can't speak to what the city of San Diego did, but if they went to a voter initiative that they gave some independent power to that auditor, then that's one thing. I just think how it's set up here, you're separate, but you're under the SANDAG umbrella. There's not an independent entity that's being created for you. That's the difficulty, is that I understand you have to do your audit analysis by hiring outside counsel who is independent of me. Let's say it's me you're looking into for whatever reason, but we would hire independent counsel and those reports would be, you'd report to the board as to what the findings are. That's what I'm saying, is that
I appreciate
that's what I'm saying. I don't know how a lawyer from the outside would be able to split its loyalties between them, because SANDAG would be writing the checks, but you're not an independent entity.
We are an independent mandated oversight of SANDAG.
But that's one thing, but you're still under SANDAG. You're independent mandated but you still report to the board. The city of San Diego might have had an initiative where it created a separation there, but there's not an inherent separation here. That's the difficulty, is that the legal counsel, as the general counsel should be, in conjunction, we decide and you go, hey, look, we're going to hire the legal counsel. They may provide this independent report to that, but we would have to jointly report it to the board. I get my loyalty is to protect the board, but my loyalty is also, if you find something wrong and you talk to me about it, we have to report it to the board. So that's the difficulty, is I don't know how robust you will have in the marketplace to try to find somebody who's going to try to split their loyalty between the two.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Zito and then Councilmember Downey.
Yeah, I just think that one, staff needs to either correct me or ascertain this, but we did go through a process a few years back, I believe, to create a policy, which was, I believe, approved by the board to allow the independent performance auditor to hire counsel for issues that she felt necessary. There's a documented process how that happens, and I believe and I'm pretty sure it was approved by the board. Courtney, I don't know if you can remember, because this was before your time, if you got that policy. We need to
Wasn't
look
that
up.
before we changed who the general counsel worked for? The general counsel used to work for management.
But that policy is still in effect.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That policy is still in effect. It may be time to revisit that policy. What what your attorney is saying was also brought up at that time. That it was fully acknowledged that whoever gets hired by the independent counsel is obligated to SANDAG, right? That was correct. It's that they have to be representing SANDAG as well because they're getting hired by SANDAG. And this was talked about a fair amount at that point in time as well. But it was someone who was chosen, which counsel was chosen, what they'd be looking into was entirely controlled by the auditor, not by the SANDAG's attorney's office. So that, but they will have allegiance to SANDAG because SANDAG's paying their bills. And so that was discussed at that point in time. But I do think that this question is broader than this one specific policy because we have another policy that says Courtney can go do this
I hear you.
already, to the best of my knowledge.
Councilmember Downey?
Approved.
I have to agree with the general counsel. At this point, I'd like to see case law. I'd like to see something that says that an entity has to pay for an attorney that they have no control over whatsoever. And if we set it up, if we've passed a policy, we've established it, I'm still not even sure that works. So I'd like to see how that's being interpreted somewhere. Never mind getting an insurance company or a law firm to do this. So I guess that's my question. I'd like to see if we've ever done that in the past. And obviously going through the voters is another whole separate issue on how that manages. So just from our rules, how we're set up, how we are structured, we went through a lot in the last couple of years trying to find ways to review ourselves and set up independent reviews. So I'm not saying that's not a good thing. It is. I just legally, let's clean this up. I don't think we can just assume they can go higher. I just don't think they can unless there's something else already happened.
Yeah, to answer that question, it has been done once before, but it was actually done by the audit committee. It was in the context of the very first audit that the committee did, and they brought in an outside counsel to give opinions on the results of that audit. So we can go back and review that history too if we want.
Wait, may I ask a
Yes,
question?
go ahead.
You hired an attorney to give opinions on the audit to the audit committee.
Yes. And the recommendations and the legal foundations of the recommendations.
I'd have to think what they were actually then, who they were being tasked for. Because that's actually the way you phrase that is a little bit quirky. That's not, if you understand the way he said it,
It is a little different.
It's not what we were just talking about now. It's a little bit different. So I'll go back to what I said before. I like to see any case precedent that said this is viable. We can actually separate it this way. And if it is, did we do whatever the mechanism is we have to do to be able to separate it? And I'm way new to this. I don't want to throw something in the middle of years of work.
No, but you're an attorney, so we appreciate that, your expertise on this. So your word is it's definitely worthwhile. Mayor Jones?
I will admit upfront, not an attorney. So my opinion is we probably need a little more information before we can make a decision on this. So Alfred works for the board to support us. Teddy, you work for the board, but also SANDAG, and you're supposed to have SANDAG as your main client. I think that it would be important for our independent auditor to actually have legal representation, but I want to figure out how everyone thinks their roles should be put together before I make a decision, because I don't feel informed enough and I feel like this is kind of a monkey wrench. So maybe we could get our two attorneys and our audit committee or our independent auditor to come up with what the clear expectations would be, because I always feel like knowing what those expectations would be important, and then a clear path of how we would be able to achieve that, to make our independent auditor feel like she is getting what she needs. And then also we're sufficiently protected as well as the agency itself. So we've got a triangle here.
Yeah, and I agree with that approach. I think that we definitely need more information because of the changes that we've made with who hires the general counsel, yet also wanting to make sure that the independent auditor is able to use legal services when and how she needs to as well, to make sure. So there's got to be a way to do this where there is a real clear client attorney relationship, and that also, come to think of it, what attorney would really want to apply for this, right? Wouldn't that preclude them from a lot of other?
Yeah, that's the other issue, is that if, as a business principle, that if you get a law firm who's doing this, they would maybe perhaps precluding trying to get working for you, they may preclude their work from working with SANDAG as a whole. So are you going to get a robust marketplace to try to be interested in doing that? I don't know the answer to that question. So with that being said, if the board can consider this, maybe to complete independence, we can request the board counsel, who's an independent firm, maybe to do an analysis like this and see where they come back with, because obviously you heard my opinion on this. I don't want it to be biased and I want it to be independent, but maybe Alfred and an Osman firm can go about this and
Yeah, let's
gain
do that. I
information.
think that's a great idea. Courtney, and then Councilmember LaCava.
Through the chair, can we come, before we agree to that, can we just come back with some analysis? I think that there is other offices that do this and provide you the information in relation to why it would be, because we did, as former Chair Zito said, we went through the process on this. I was a part of the selection committee that the city of San Diego just completed for their outside audit, their outside legal services. And I understand your concerns around the client. And we did talk about that. So I think if we bring some information back first.
Well, I think that we can do
first
both,
step.
right? I mean, if you give the information to Alfred, that would be of help to his analysis. Yeah, that work? Okay. All right. Councilmember
Yeah,
LaCava.
just real quickly, just to build on what Courtney has said. So we have independent for both the auditor and the ethics commission. They don't use them on a regular basis, but there are moments where the person you're investigating may be too close, may involve even the legal counsel, or the legal counsel may refuse to be cooperative. And so it's more like a safety valve as opposed to a whole new panel. And there are firms. The biggest question we face is that most of the firms are giant firms, and we have to figure out whether there's a firewall and whether we agree with the firewall, because they may be doing work with SANDAG. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in this field. I'm stretching myself a little bit. But I think there is robust interest in performing these very isolated and unique tasks when the moment calls for it. So,
And to the vice chair's point, the firewalls, we've talked about the firewall.
Yeah.
I do believe when we went through the process, and I'll have to look back at this though, that I or the audit committee would be the client in that. And I think that's the same in the city of San Diego. So to ensure the independence and to ensure that they're representing, and then those legal opinions, if they're part of whatever we're doing, obviously would be brought forward if necessary.
Okay. And then the last thing I'll say, I put a motion, nobody seconded, so I figured the motion's gone. You made quite a few suggestions. I don't know if anybody actually reacted to them.
I haven't had any reactions, so let me just enumerate them. How
Yeah.
about that? Would that be good?
Yeah.
So would be there be no distinction between the audit committee in terms of chair and vice chair appointments than any other of the committees that we have per AB 805, that the chair continues to do that? That the selection committee process is a little hybrid between what is recommended and what has been, that the selection committee process, which now I have to find, includes a audit committee member, board member, and an audit committee public member, and that the OIPA and or one of her staff or higher level people can sit in on the selection process to inform the selection committee of what the job is, basically. But that otherwise, we strike the CEO and the independent performance auditor from being part of the voting on the public members, so that there is no conflict inherent. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some additional input. Again, just as the former chair, one of the things I ran into, I'll challenge your statement a little bit. In the audit committee is different because it's the only committee that has 3 expert voting public members on it of all the PACs that are totally different. And one of the challenges I was faced as chair is that there's only 5 members. That means without violating the Brown Act, you can only talk to one other member outside of a notice meeting. So when I was dealing with issues, I could either talk to my vice chair or I could talk to a public member, but I could not talk to both. And I think in that sense, it might be nice in certain circumstances, if it's possible, the vice chair could be a public member, because then you can rely on the expertise that you're bringing in these public members.
So the chair of the board can appoint a public member as the.
No, I know, but the chair of the board doesn't know that. it's the chair, the audit committee members know what the best balance is going to be for the committee. And it goes back to that level of, you know, knowledge that's internal to the committee and letting them sort that out. But that's the one difference is you have these expert public members that might be able to provide some input from a leadership perspective and why that recommendation came up. So, you know, from my perspective, I could easily see you know, the strong argument. I'm actually the original recommendation that came out of the audit committee was both the chair and the vice chair were entirely appointed by the audit committee, but I felt pretty strongly that the chair needs to have a good working relationship with the chair of the board and have a good board overview as well. So that's why we switched to at least the chair needs to be one of the two members, but certainly makes a lot of sense for the chair to appoint the chair. But I do think having the audit committee select the vice chair is a useful tool for the committee to be able to take advantage of because of the limitation in five member voting. And the other thing I wanted to point out is with your recommendation, are we removing any SANDAG executive office participation as well?
Yes.
Okay. And again, keep in mind, one of the reasons that we had that participation was because, of course, they know the most about the SANDAG operations, but it also then provided a counterbalance to the participation by the audit committee, the auditor's office. So you had the auditor's office represented, you had management represented. They each had their own input without making the process feel unbalanced.
Well, perhaps then the CEO could be part of that education process to the selection committee as well as the OIPA, but not engaged in the voting.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yes, right. Not the CEO, but the CFO or representative. Yes, but not a voting member then. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then in terms of the chair, vice chair, would somebody else please weigh in? I'm just one person. I still think it could be a slippery slope for the other committees, but that's my opinion, and I haven't heard anybody else's.
City of San Diego, we have two council members and 3 public. We appoint the chair and the vice chair, and they're both the council members. It seems to have worked fine. In our case, not having been on the audit committee, I want to make sure, but if so.
Yeah, so.
This was an important part for the audit committee. I think that Dave Zito kind of mentioned that, you know, perhaps that the vice chairs put on by the committee. It just tends to give them a little bit more position. Again, we ask a lot of the public members, the qualifications are pretty high, and to do it for a volunteer basis, I think is important that their voice be heard.
Councilmember Downey.
This is a long time ago when I was the chair of the Environmental Mitigation Program Committee, and then actually the Energy Working Group. I was the chair as the elected of the Energy Working Group, but because we did not have anybody else who was elected that had any real experience in energy law, my vice chair was the director of the Energy Policy Initiative Center, because that was the expert. And in a weird way, he hired me to teach for him. And then I wound up chairing his board when I left the board. So we were experts in the field and we easily went back and forth. So I understood the recommendation. There wasn't anybody amongst everybody that was there that had any background in everything that we were trying to do. But I didn't think of it because we were a working group though. So it was not the RPC or the auditing committee, but I understand what you're saying. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a middle ground somewhere that the chair from the audit committee could make the recommendation of the vice chair? Just because I do understand sometimes you really do need another expert in the field.
I think that's a good middle ground so that the chair would, well, how about this? The chair would appoint the vice chair from among the public members. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. As long as, okay. All right. So staff, do you have the motion? Okay. The motion is the proposed changes to SANDAG Board Policy 39, with the exception of the proposed changes to the 6 and 2.4, which is the attorney stuff, of the chair selecting the vice. What? Okay. Inclusion. I think I better wait until you're finished typing. Okay.
Chair.
Yeah. Yes. And Everlyn.
In the alternative, Chair, we could also take direction from this committee to incorporate all the feedback feedback that was discussed, incorporate that into a new red line, and then bring that back with the analysis that the committee has
It'd be kind of good to get this done so we can get some public members, on board, because I think they're all expired right now. So they're expired, right? All
We
three
have an
public
active
members.
recruitment that's under the current policy, sorry, through the chair.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That means they're empty if you're recruiting.
Yeah, staff just suggested we get this part done and we'll just come back with other. Okay, is this complete up here? The proposed, we should say changes to Standing Board Policy 39 with the exception of the proposed changes to section 2.4 and inclusion of the chair selecting the vice chair among the public members. No. The change of the word term to contract. Okay, so wait. With the exception of the provision and inclusion of the chair selecting both the chair and the chair of the board selects the chair and selects the vice chair from among the public members. The change of the word term to contract in section 5.1 and the inclusion of board evaluation of compensation in sections 3.1.5 and 3.1.11 be sent to the board in reviewed in closed session. The removal of the OIPA staff and internal SANDAG staff from the screening committee voting committee, but the aforementioned staff will be available to assist the screening committee with questions or briefings of section 4.2.3 and the deferral of the proposed changes to section 6.1 to allow board counsel to provide an analysis and the deletion of board policy 42, the creation of new board policy 43, and then recommend to the board of directors for approval. Teddy.
Just to clarify for purposes of the motion where it references the chair selecting the vice chair, just want to be clear that it is the board chair.
The board
selecting
chair.
The audit committee vice chair from among the public members.
Yeah, the board chair selects the chair of the audit committee and selects the vice chair of the audit committee from among the public members. Yes. Okay.
Chair,
Yes, Courtney.
on that, can I make a recommended suggestion that, because this is going to take a long time to come back, on 6.1.4, that we strike the independent outside legal counsel under contract with the independent performance auditor. That way, if there is a situation where I would need a subpoena right now, I would confer with legal counsel, OGC, and then we can come back further on the discussion of independent legal counsel.
Okay, so that is 6.1.4. So we will, it shall seek legal counsel from the Office of General Counsel, period, right?
With
Strike it,
regarding, it can go
Yeah,
counsel and then regarding the relevant
legal
legal issues.
Yeah, okay, just what I had originally suggested is permanent, but we're going to review that.
Okay,
Okay.
keep saying 6.1.4. I think it's 6.14.
6.14, you're right. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
6.14.
6.14.
On page 7 of the item. Okay, well, let's just vote. Yes, yep. All in favor? Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries and we'll come back with that one.
Apologies, Chair. Thank you so much.
I think we lose our quorum now. Yeah. Can we, before you walk out the door, should we start a presentation or not?
Yeah, we can start, but
We can't have any
voted
discussion?
Yeah,
Can we have discussion?
Just leave it
yeah,
open.
limited discussion, but no action.
We understand, Mayor Jones. We all, this was longer than we all thought and we got a late start because of quorum issues. So what do you recommend, staff, in terms of agenda?
We can bring items straight to the board. C needs to take action on working groups. If you want to hear the presentation today, we can, or you can just push the whole thing.
Okay, we're just gonna have to push the whole thing, I think. Right. I'm sorry, Jennifer, you came for working groups. Yeah. Well, we can do the presentation for working groups. Why don't we do the presentation for working groups? Okay. All right. Okay, I'll be turning over to staff and then we'll take public comments. Thank you very much, Mayor Jones. You are allowed to leave now.
Okay, could I get the PowerPoint for the working group item, please?
And while we're waiting for that, I just want to remind everybody that early last year, we initiated what we called the Governance Refresh Project. We brought a consultant on to really look at the effectiveness of our policy advisory committees and our working groups and make some recommendations for how we can improve communication and coordination. So that project wrapped up late last year, and you all made some recommendations to the board to adopt some of the recommendations around the policy advisory committees, and the board did adopt those and updated board policy to reflect those changes in December. Now it's time to talk about the recommendations for the working groups, and that is what today's presentation is all about. So we started down this path because we heard loud and clear from all of you that we needed better alignment between the working groups, the PACs, and the board. The members of those committees wanted to feel more informed, and they wanted to know that their input was influencing decisions that were being made. And of course, the board wanted to have more comfort and confidence that items coming to them had really been fully vetted at the PAC and working group level, and that those really meaty policy conversations were happening at that level. So work could move forward a little bit more quickly. So this slide summarizes the assessment that was done and some of the key themes that we heard. There were more than 120 individuals that provided input through surveys, through interviews, and through one-on-one conversations. And by and large, everyone agrees that SANDAG needs good quality input from vested stakeholders to do their work, but that the working groups weren't necessarily fulfilling this need. And as a result of that, staff were finding other avenues to get the level of input and technical information that they needed. And this has been creating more meetings, more work, not just for SANDAG, but for all of your staff as well. So in general, there was this desire to transition from these larger regional information sharing forums to having more focused conversations on regional policies, programs, and priorities, making sure that we had the right people in the room for those conversations. The scope of these working groups is quite large. So Sustainable Communities Working Group, for example, covers everything from housing to the climate to resilience. The Environmental Mitigation Program, mobility covers everything related to transportation. So you don't always have the right experts in the room to really provide that meaningful input. And if people don't feel like there's value in attending, they stop attending, and we have quorum issues and we have attendance issues. So there was that strong desire to really have more focused conversations with the right people in the room. So two key recommendations that we want to present to you today to address those issues. The first is converting some of the working groups from formal working groups to focused task forces, and regular convenings at the executive level with key stakeholders. So those have started happening. You've probably heard from your city managers. We're having regular meetings with them. We started having regular meetings with military leadership as well, with tribal leadership. And so we're going to continue those because those conversations are really helpful and fruitful, and it helps get you information that you need. And then for those working groups that continue having a cadence that makes sense and annual work plans that are adopted every year that are really focused on agency mandates and priorities. So we presented these recommendations to the city managers at their last meeting, and based on the conversation that we had, they were very supportive of transitioning most of the working groups under the Regional Planning Committee and the Transportation Committee to task forces that are really focused on those regional priorities like housing. And the board approved a project delivery schedule last year, so focused on transportation project development and delivering on that. Getting ready for the 2029 regional plan, so having a task force that can help us with the next growth forecast and other items related to the regional plan. So attachment 1 of your staff report really lays out in detail what those task forces are and what they are proposed to do. Some of them exist today, some of them are new. And then to continue to hold those regular convenings with critical stakeholders to coordinate on those priorities and areas of interest. So we want to continue with those city manager and those leadership meetings. And then at the project level, staff already has a lot of meetings and coordinates directly with agency staff that are affected by those projects. So attachment 3 is a list of what we call project development teams that are either current or that are going to be starting up pretty soon as the new projects kick off. We have more than 20 currently active project development teams that we're getting input from staff at your agencies, the transit operators, Caltrans, and other stakeholders. So what does this look like? That animation went really quickly, but there are a number of working groups that were under the Transportation Committee and Regional Planning Committee that are being, that we're proposing convert to these task forces here. The one working group that would remain as it is the Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee. This is mandated, it's required. This is a group that really weighs in on specialized transportation for people with disabilities and seniors. So the coordinated plan that the Transportation Committee approved last year is one of those areas of responsibility for that group. The change, though, is meeting cadence that we're proposing, so switching to quarterly from every other month currently. And their charter has been updated along with an annual work plan. That's included in your staff report as attachment 3 for your approval today. So some of the task forces are existing, some of them are newly proposed. And there's a couple of things that I want to point out about the structure and why it really helps to address the issues that we were hearing about. I mentioned to you the really broad scope of the working groups and never really being able to get into detailed conversations on issues that are really important. So this allows us to do that, to make sure that we have the right people in the rooms to have that level of conversation. What you don't see on this slide is those executive level convenings and those leadership meetings and the project development team. So those will continue. But the housing task force, I think you all know housing is a big topic. We spent a lot of time at Regional Planning Committee last week talking about that. I think the board will be taking that up. So that's one of the new task forces that we're proposing. As we get ready for the 2029 regional plan, we want to think about how emerging transportation trends and technology should be accounted for. So that's another task force that we want to form. We just adopted a regional climate action plan, so that climate planning task force will help with the implementation of that plan. And we have a flexible fleets task force already, a Vision Zero task force already. The community advisory group is the social equity working group was formed around the regional plan. So we have contracts with community-based organizations that help us do outreach for the regional plan. Those contracts expired because we just adopted a regional plan in 2025. So while we gear up for 2029 and put out an RFP for contracts with community-based organizations to help us with outreach, we want to continue to get input on SANDAG projects from community-based organizations around the region. So there's a community advisory group that's proposed there. So that's kind of a high-level summary of what we're proposing. We have a lot of detail as attachments to your staff report. I know we were going to look for a recommendation or approval today, but since we lost quorum, I think we'll have to come back for that later or go straight to the board for that.
Yes, I think so, but we can take some comments. First, we'll go to the public and then we'll take some member comments.
Sure.
Thank you, Antoinette.
Yes, we have 1 in person and 3 online. It's Caesar, followed by Paula Bold online.
Cesar and Purita. Very touching. Right people in this room. Thank you, ma'am, for your presentation. This is actually the pillars of our Constitution. Patterns of governance. Right people. Under God, indivisible. Where are our representatives from the spiritual powerhouse? Where is the Archbishop here? Where is the priest? Where is the social engineering leaders? We need them as much as we need the representation of our neighbors, the tribal sovereign nation. Madam Chair, Sir CEO, non-government agency, SANDAG, we need the spiritual powerhouse guiding us to be indivisible, working together. We have done our part. We heard you. We have seen you. We have seen how the city leadership is destroying our city. We need divine intervention with this powerhouse, this spiritual power coming from our churches, whether it is Muslim, whether it is Episcopal, name it. We have thousands of faith and religious homes right here in our region. We need them to strengthen our moral dimension, to inspire us to give us the hope and faith that Sandiegans will survive in these challenging times. Nepis virus is spreading too fast. You know that, Councilor Laqadda.
Thank you.
You're
Your
an
time has
environmental-
expired. Next is Paul the Bold Online, followed by Truth. This is item 6, the SANDAG Working Group update.
Let's see. Oh, I wonder, it's the wrong speech. Sorry. The working group update. Let's see.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking for my speech. Too many work groups. You should save money and free up some schedules by combining some of them. The community advisory group shows what you think of the community. Needs to meet more often than as needed, maybe monthly. Community needs are always changing as people age, move, get jobs, families grow, and so on. Linking community needs to the master plan needs to be a regular thing. In fact, probably the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council should be combined with this. Seniors should not have to wait for a quarterly review to have their paratransit arrangements modified. You might also want to combine the Flexible Fleets Task Force with this. A bit of money. Nice to have an interagency technical working group on tribal transportation issues, but very little will happen until the tribes get the vote. And I'm not sure why only the federally recognized tribes are on the work group. Also, I think it should be combined with the tribal task force and meet monthly. The Vision Zero task force or anything having to do with safety needs to meet as needed. When a safety issue arises, looks to me like the new work groups are not needed and are an invitation to stress staff with more work, in quotes, or maybe a chance for a midday nap like
Thank you. Your time
president.
has expired. Next is Truth, followed by the original draw. This is item 6.
Hey, how do you confirm that those on the Social Services Council are with limited means? Is that a no verification thing again? Changing a bunch of group names to task force does not mean they're going to do a more professional job of overseeing anything. I'm concerned the useless freeway lid for Barrio Logan will become vandalized with racist, communist trash graffiti. Under the active and planned project development teams, shouldn't the Rapid 277 include a planning group, not just the county? I look forward to Rapid 483 and how rapid it really could be all the way from Riverside to San Marcos on an inefficient bus. Who's deciding the draft area served by these new rapid bus routes? Where is the money to pay for them when MTS is way off the fiscal cliff due to their horrible union-controlled policies? Why would the city of Santee need a bus to the Blue Line when they don't even have a bus route to City Hall? Why does there need to be a bi-monthly meeting on a downtown bus stopover when this topic has been discussed for years? Rent a closet with bathroom breaks and be done with it. I'd like some public discussion on what La Mesa is planning for their trolley station. I look forward to the transit fare increase debacle from the inept MTS and its direct enabler, SANDAG. If the Social Services Council is supposed to identify the transportation needs of persons of limited means, how does that reconcile together by raising their cost of living? For the record, according to the Voice of San Diego, quote, California transit agencies are having a tough time. Ridership is low. Electric buses are breaking down, and they're in a funding crisis. A state transit task force was created to address these problems, but their latest report just summarized the issues, end quote. Will SANDAG ever address the failed state of its failed electric and transit policies and lack of oversight? Or just keep adding more empty ghost buses and bike lanes to our communities? Oh, and manage toll lanes with a state road tax. What a hot mess meeting. Very on brand for SANDAG. See you later, delinquents. Thank you.
Our next public comment is the original draw, followed by Blair Beekman. This is item 6, the SANDAG Working Group update.
Talk about the government growing, and the only thing we have to show for it is more control, raise the cost of living, people just suffering. And so it's like you guys want to spread things out so much and act like it's going to, bring in, more better, transparency or different things like that. But I mean, when you're talking about you want the right people in the room, means you only want the right people on the board to be pushing the agenda that you have. Because if you guys really were wanting to do the right thing for the community, you would want to take in all information. You can't say you're an expert when you're spreading lies about climate change. And everything that you're implementing is based off of propaganda. And you don't want to take in any outside information outside of that, because that's your money whores. And so you got to get the funding. So you got to fall in line unless you suddenly don't want to. And then you wonder why funding gets cut, protecting illegal immigrants. But, it's like, if you guys were to actually look into weather modification and things that are causing the storms, weather manipulation and geoengineering, then you guys
Please
can
stay on
say
topic.
oh, I am on topic, because these are the things that your groups talk about. And again, see, you don't like when people don't give you accolades and where they're not propping you up going like, thank you so much for what you're doing. You need to be having other opinions come in, because you can't be experts on fraud. When the information is fraudulent, that is not pushing and doing what is best for the people. You're spending our money to do things that are very nefarious. And it is about control. And if you are unaware of the United Nations agenda, then you are, I'm surprised you're so ignorant of that. But most of you know, and you just don't care, because you just are puppets. And you don't even understand that you're putting yourself into a little controlled environment as well, because you're only being used to push this. And it's sad, because if the people really saw, they would not be thanking you for destroying their lives.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Consuelo. This is item 6, the SANDAG Working Group update.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Yeah, thanks for the meeting today. My public comment was during Maui's, half-hour downpours, so it was a lot of work to speak. Thank you. I hope Consuelo's words, she offered a very nice reply about how to interpret the Brown Act. I hope we work on our public speaker items patiently. Good luck in those efforts for all of us in cooperation. Paul LeBold on the previous item offered audit concerns that I think can be relevant to the working group items that I hope our audit committees can have a full voice in their opinions, and that can be respected for the future of SANDAG. I hope their voice is not cut out in any way. The Vision Zero working group here speaks to what I've been always trying to talk about. I hope they're working on how to really bring together a holistic approach to the future of, bicycle safety, traffic safety, pedestrian safety. Inviting an open public process is, I think, some of the goals of Vision Zero. It isn't to have better and better law enforcement. It's to have a holistic community approach. And that, to me, is tech accountability and all the good work that it can do and is capable of. I think I heard indigenous group work that can be part of the working group process. You had a great indigenous group meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was awesome, laying out what they need for their housing issues in the future. Man, really good luck how to bring in tech accountability to indigenous projects and their future of broadband and the like. Creating a space where all the community can be involved in their process, learning to talk to each other more clearly. It's the potential of tech accountability is awesome. Please consider it. Thank you.
And our last public comment is Consuelo. This is item 6, SANDAG Working Group update. You're self-muted, Consuelo?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yep, yes, go ahead.
I'm out and about. Okay. So yeah, sorry. SANDAG work update. Well, spoiler alert, it's not working. The last item was so scary. And Brother Cesar, I just want to let you know that we are that divine intervention, brother. We are. The people have forgotten their power. No one is coming to save us. No branch of government will ever fix anything because that's not the design. So yeah, it's up to us, the tax cattle slaves who fund everything. It's up to us to stand up, to wake up to their, and it's up to the people to wake up to their own sovereignty and to remember who they are. Nothing is working for the people. Everything is working only for government control. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. All right. Let's go to our member discussion. And I'm wondering if Councilmember Mendoza, if you had any comments that you'd like to make on this item.
Yes, I definitely think I should.
Yes, that would be great.
Comments. I'm sorry there aren't more mobility working group or working group chairs here to comment. So I just found out about this yesterday, like pretty late yesterday, and also Mayor Snow called me late last night. She's the chair of the social equity working group. So she and I had a chance to discuss this a little bit, and I read the staff report. Of course, I knew after we had our last meetings, I think in September, and all the meetings after that were canceled. So we knew that changes were happening. So this isn't a surprise. It's just we didn't know what the plan was until yesterday. So, but I do want to say, looking at this, and I was just on this working group last year, so I only attended a few meetings. And one thing I did want to point out as far as why I think the working groups are very important is, but I think this can be achieved with the task forces, maybe even better. But this last year has been very challenging, and we're going to have another challenging year and a third challenging year and probably a fourth challenging year of just a lot of changes going on in the topics that at least I know my working group and the social I looked up some of the past meetings for the social equity group for this last year so I could advocate for Mayor Snow. So it is vitally important that we stay on top of this and stay in touch with community groups and our cities, not just our council members, but these working groups are bringing in the professionals who work at our cities. I'm not a professional council member. I'm a lot of things. I'm a daycare provider. So I like that from looking at the topics that are the task forces are going to be highlighting. I think those cover at least what our two working groups have been talking about for at least the past year and are going to be topics of importance in the next few years coming up. So I think that's all the input I have. If anybody has any questions, please pass this on to the next executive board meeting. And I don't plan to come again if you don't mind.
We understand. We understand.
Although this has been very informative.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm sure your ward there is thrilled to be here. Mayor Martinez, I understand you're online. Did you have any comments you would like to make?
I am. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really feel that transitioning from what was formerly the Sustainability Committee, which I was chair of, to more of a specialized advisory group really is positive. It represents a more strategic evolution, I think, that will provide the board with more precise and expert level guidance on what is pertinent at the time. So, as the former chair of now the disbanded Sustainability Committee, I do support the staff's recommendations because I think it will replace what was a broad and kind of general agenda or mandate to really focus bodies that will be capable of a meaningful progress, whether it be housing legislation or whatever that topic is. And at the end of the day, I think that the members of the committees will feel a lot more rewarded and a lot more valued. So, I'm speaking about the Sustainability Committee, which I chaired, but looking at the different task force groups that are recommended by staff, I highly recommend that too. I think it's just a really positive step forward for the members and most importantly, the board to make their decisions in our region.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mayor Martinez. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Any other members? Councilman or Mayor Sanchez?
Thank you very much. I do like what is being presented. I just had a couple of questions. Number one, I do like that we're incorporating a lot more of the cities in terms of the staff. I think that's very, very helpful because when I have my conversations with staff, sometimes there's a disconnect. And so I'm not the best translator from what happens here to staff and, hope that they are sometimes watching because it's not just reading the materials, it's really looking at, watching the interaction and kind of ideas that end up coming out from here. I did have a question about proposed changes, the one slide that has Transportation Committee and then Regional Planning Committee and then all the gray boxes. I don't know if we can get there. But basically I was wondering, how do we get what happens at these task forces and newly constructed, will their work somehow also be communicated to Transportation Committee and Regional Planning Committee? Is that because there's 4 rows? Actually, rows is this way. There are columns, yeah, columns. And so is it the first 2 columns that are under Transportation Committee? Is that where they're going to be, somehow
funneled up? They're not actually perfectly aligned with the different committees there because there's a lot more task forces. But the answer is yes. So those task forces will be providing that technical input, and then we'll be bringing that back up through the Transportation Committee, Regional Planning Committee, making sure that it's part of the presentation, part of the staff report that comes to you all. So you know that your technical staff have really vetted these things and provided good information.
And then from there, it goes to the Executive Committee and then to the board, or how does... What is the...
It really depends on the item and the charter for the different groups. So some things only go to the Transportation Committee and don't have to go to the board because the Transportation Committee can make recommendations and decisions.
I guess I was trying to think, well, how does everything, connect? And so, I think this is really great. There's a lot of work to be had. There are folks who have expertise in certain things, and I really appreciate that. And I really love this idea of all of us talking to each other and, through that, presenting the best.
Yeah, and Mayor, just to add, I think the additional part that the chair and everybody's trying to put in is on the Executive Committee, that will be like our business committee and providing us guidance to staff of how to manage on the management part of the organization. And then, of course, Transportational Committee and Regional Planning have very specific areas that they focus and oversight. But I think it's also important to highlight that sometimes a technical recommendation by some of the teams may float to the Exec Committee because it's part of the business of the organization, as you saw today's robust discussion on the policy regarding the Audit Committee.
And will there be a place, say, on the website where not the entire agenda, maybe highlighting important topics per at these task forces, where the public and or even, you know, members of the board could come and listen if it's a very specific thing that they're interested in or seeing how.
I think the goal would be to have technical expertise discussions within the organization, and then having the public notify the public during the committee meetings.
Right.
To have those robust, the task forces aren't making any decisions. They're just coming out and having robust conversations and providing input to the committees. And the committees, that's when the public discussion and the decisions or recommendations to the board will be coming.
Right. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for the great work.
Thank you. Councilmember Downey.
I wanted to say, first off, I applaud this focus and restructuring. My city did the same thing. And unfortunately, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to tell Councilwoman Mendoza. We had the same thing happen. Some of our working groups felt blindsided. So I'm sorry if any of our groups didn't see it coming. But it was a long process for us, and it just took, we finally took action, and I didn't realize we were finally going to do it. But everybody appreciated it in the end because we're focusing on what we really can accomplish as an organization and letting it start with the people that are experts in that. So I just want to applaud SANDAG. I think this will be good. I think we'll look back and say this was a very good thing. But one of the things we did realize from the small working groups that we gave them a little freedom because we said, we can't keep going off on these tangents. We have to focus on what the mission of the organization is. But if you have an idea you think we could do, then you bring it up to the staff of the working group and then we can figure that out. So it helped work both ways. So I just wanted to thank you.
That's great. Okay. Thank you so much. We can't take any action on this for lack of quorum, but it'll go to the board. Appreciate all the work that went into this. And I too agree. I think it's a really good move. My city manager says, do not get rid of the city manager meeting. Yeah, you can really get a lot out of it. All right, this meeting is adjourned until March 6th at 9 a.m.